John, bro, you continue to amaze. This will be a short lesson this morning because we definitely want to make time to bless the various animals that we are so blessed to have in our presence today. This is our blessing of the animal ceremony, and during this particular ceremony, we invite those of you who have pets or animals in your life. This is the one opportunity of the year where you can bring your pet or your animal, whether you're carrying that pet or animal in your arms, or at this point you can only carry your pet or animal in your memories. We invite you to bring them to this service so that we may celebrate them and recognize them and bless them. And this type of service is a real good placeholder to take time to reflect on the fact that we share this life journey with animals, whether these animals make most of their time in the skies and in the heavens, whether animals that crawl on the earth's surface, or those beloved animals that make their home in the seas and in the waters. It's a good time to reflect because in our modern day society, more civilized, more advanced, we don't live like many cultures and many peoples in the past where every day we would interact with and encounter animals in the wild, in the field. So during those times, everyday life consisted of, to some measure of degree, interacting or encountering animals. So it brings about a different perspective and appreciation for animals when we interact with them in the wild, in their natural habitats on an everyday basis. Now today, we certainly can have animals as pets, but it's a little bit of a different perspective. And we know that human beings have a very long history with interacting with animals, having relationships with animals. During the times of hunter-gatherer, animals were the primary source of food. When the Ice Age occurred and there were less animals of size and mass, human beings began to gravitate towards vegetation as a means and a source of food. During those times, after those times was the beginning of relating to animals as companions, whether we would merely greet them when they come in our presence, or we embrace an animal and we keep an animal close to us, and those animals would help us during times of the hunt, or they would help us during other kinds of times. Some cultures, many Native American cultures I can think of, they saw animals as deities, or they ascribed high and holy characteristics to animals. They either saw animals as representatives of certain deities, gods or goddesses, or they saw animals as being embodiments and representatives of God-like qualities. In that sense, it still was a recognition of the sacredness of animals, and I would say that there was a sense that there was a natural connection between human beings and animals. I would say that more of those societies that saw animals as sacred readily saw that. And I want to share a quote by Charles Fillmore that I came across last night. Charles Fillmore, of course, being one of the co-founders of the Unity movement, along with his wife Myrtle. And this writing says, "The master on the spiritual plane is not a slave driver. He must love every creature. His love must flow forth in protecting streams when any creature is in danger of violence or destruction. He must recognize all of life as God's life He must recognize all of life as God's life. Charles and Myrtle Fillmore believed in this so strongly, and they recognized so strongly that all of life is sacred that they dedicated their lives to being vegetarians. Charles was of the belief that if we advocated for the killing of animals for consumption, or we would consume animals, that it would inhibit our ability to come into a full consciousness of life. Take that for what it's worth to you, but that is what Charles Fillmore and Myrtle Fillmore advocated. They never made it obligatory, or they never compelled that people in Unity adopt a vegetarian lifestyle, but they were advocates for it, and they promoted it. So I think a fair treatment of Unity relative to Charles Fillmore would be to point that fact out. That being said, wherever you are on that, this is still powerful in the sense that all of life is God's life. That means not only we as human beings are expressions of the one mind, the one God. The animals that we brought here today are expressions of God. The animals that we were unable to bring that we left at home, they're expressions of God. The animals that we hold closely in our loving memories because they have made their transition and we keep them close to us, near and dear, they are expressions of God, just as much as we are. Because of that, it should cause us to grow in our respect for animals, grow in our appreciation for animals, and really get a greater sense of the whole of life. For when we can adopt a consciousness that celebrates the whole of life, we are nearer and closer to the divine. Animals, the animals that we have in our lives, and the animals that we see in the wild, they bless us in many ways, and they teach us many lessons. One of the things that animals do is that they have an innocence about them. And when we are in the presence of animals, or we encounter animals, or we observe them, we can sense that innocence in them. And it reminds us of our own innocence in God. For whatever we may have done or wherever we've gone through, for the happy times of celebration and joy, and then the times of sorrow and even the missteps that we make, though that may be a part of our human record, in God we always maintain this innocence. And our animal friends constantly remind us of that. Each and every one of us who have an animal in our lives right now, we know that no matter what we might have gone through the course of the day, no matter what happens, no matter what mood we are in, we know that our animals love us unconditionally. We may have had a bad day at work. We may have gotten into an argument with someone. We may not have been in the best mood. But when we walk through that door, we all know that once that loving animal gazes sight of us, they rush up to greet us, and in that sacred moment, nothing else seems to matter. I'm experiencing this love from this animal. This is a perfect representation of divine love. We are never separated from divine love. We don't have to earn it or qualify for it. We don't have to petition Congress in order to get it. God's love is ever present, right there for us to experience, only a thought away if we would turn towards that divine love. Our animal friends teach us this, and they remind us of this. And each time they extend this love to us, they are actually extending an invitation for us to turn back towards divine love, to turn back towards that presence so that we can feel it and embrace it and embody it And then we can go in turn, and in our interactions with our family and our loved ones and the people that we encounter, we can embody and we can express that divine love. And we can also learn something about prayer when it comes to animals. Animals are in constant prayer. They're not like us, where we go along with our lives and we have moments of formal prayer where we remember our oneness with God, or during the times of day when we reflect on our oneness, when we come back to it. Animals don't have to come back to anything because they are always of a consciousness of being in constant prayer. The evidence of that is that animals, unless disturbed, never live outside of their nature. They never deviate from their nature. For whatever level of awareness and consciousness they have, they don't have a thought to deviate. They don't have self-sabotage consciousness like we can sometimes have. We can sometimes miss the mark. We can sometimes forget. We can sometimes fall short of our Christ nature. No such thing with animals. No such thing. They're constantly in that presence and in that mindset. And I believe that when we interact with our animals, it's sacred time and it's sacredness about it. I didn't bring my little dog Magic this morning because he wouldn't let me give the lesson without jumping on me and so I blessed him this morning, and as I gave him the blessing, he just kind of laid down and relaxed on the floor. And then he got up and wanted to go outside to do his business. That's Magic for you. So today, for those of you who have your animals in your arms or in your memories, we want to bless your animals today. After my talk, we will go ahead and complete service as normal and dismiss anyone who would not like to stay for that. But for everyone else, if you could form a line down the center of the aisle here, we will give your animal a blessing, and we will also give you a pendant along with the prayer from St. Francis of Assisi. If you know anything about him, he was an avid animal lover. He used to go into the wild, and he would preach to the birds and preach to the other animals that he saw. If he walked along and he saw an animal that was trapped in a cage or trapped in a trap, he would go and release that animal. And he was known as having great empathy for animals. So in honor of that knowing, we want to give you a small prayer along with a pendant of St. Francis. And so we will do that. We will bless your animals, knowing their sacredness and their divinity, and knowing that they're living God's life. So we give honor and blessing to the animals today. As always, I hold you all in very sacred space, and into that space I speak a simple word of prayer. Light, life, and love to you all. God bless you.
I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God.